we are in a bit of a plateau. Okay, everybody is doing transcription, everybody is doing summaries, everybody is doing like automatic tagging and SEO. It seems like it should be more powerful than that and it should be more transformative. I think basically what happened is that all the easy things that we could do, most organizations have done. And now we have to be more creative and more imaginative in how we apply the technology. Maybe one interesting area that people don't talk about how important it is for us to invest is like UI.
What are the more creative ways of applying Gen AI technology in journalism? What are the traps we should avoid as a media industry? And how do you become a director of innovation without a tech background? In a new episode of AI Fluent, I am talking to Bruno Favero, a journalist who became director of innovation at one of Brazil's leading fact-checking websites called Aos Fatos. They develop their own bots that tackle misinformation and tools that not only document digital lies and hate, but also how the distorted algorithms of apps and platforms contributed to their spread. So, what can we all learn from Aos Fatos' business model with its focus on tech and fact-checking? Join in the conversation. You fact check me as we go. I want to tell you something about the organization you work for, and you tell me true or false. Aos Fatos is Brazil's fact checking organization, launched in July 2015 by a journalist, a developer, and a data nerd, if I can put it that way, with scarce funding and the ambitious mission of shedding light on what is true and what is false in politics. Now, Aos Fatos has grown to be one of the most innovative websites in Latin America. When did you join Aos Fatos and why?
I joined Aos Fatos in 2019. I had just done my master's in political science in the UK, and yeah, I went back to Brazil, and then I joined Aos Fatos as a reporter. Before that, I had spent like 5 years working for Folha de São Paulo, a newspaper in Brazil. Then I quit to do my master's, and I moved back to Rio. And then, yeah, I knew a friend that had worked with Tina Long, was Fato's founder. I just reached out to her and started working as a freelancer. And then I stayed there for as a reporter first, and then as an editor for a project called Radar. And then I became lead director of innovation, so managing a team of developers and product people that basically develop technology for journalism and for fact checking.
I was wondering, so how does a reporter who covered what politics and tech, with a degree in journalism and political sciences and no degree in any tech-related degree, become a director of innovation? You have a very fancy title. We all want to know. Please tell us what the path. How do, because again, in many newsrooms, I know that people who kind of responsible for innovations, they all with a tech background. So I'm very curious to hear so that you don't have this background and yet you are the leading force of innovation at your website, at your organization.
Yeah, I think for me, I always had an affinity with technology. When I did my master's, one of the focus, even though it was political science, but that had a strong focus on quantitative methods. And then I started to code also, like I'm a very lousy coder, but also to get a better understanding on about like what it takes to develop software and to code. And so I always had a lot of interest, and I used to cover as a reporter the industry when I was working at Folha. And then, but for me, it was more like an opportunity that. So basically, my title at Aos Fatos before being director of innovation was a growth director. So I was working with. So we Aos Fatos had already. I think that was also important because there were people that came after me who came before me rather, that put a process in place and hired developers and had a kind of development philosophy. And I learned a lot after joining Aos Fatos, especially about product development. There was before me there was Carol Cavaleiro. She also has a background in design, so not technical. But I think I don't know, we just were very lucky to find people, especially developers, that are super talented, super motivated, and and I think they taught me a lot too. So I learned on the job mostly.
So many people in the industry say that a key success factor for Aos Fatos is its investment in technology and your team of programmers who implement it. Do you agree? And what would you add to that? So, what are other important factors that contribute to your success?
I think, yeah, for sure, the investment we have made in technology was the way that we found to not only to uh, increase the impact of the journalism we make, but also to it's also like a competitive, like it's a differentiating factor from other news organizations. So yeah, I think it's definitely that, but also we have it very clear for us that technology exists to serve the mission of the company. It's not an end on itself. Like we develop technology to increase the impact of journalism, and at the very core, the reason for success is the commitment to good journalism ultimately.
Could you talk more about this business model of yours? How easy or difficult is it in real life to maintain this model? I mean, to create your own tech products and find customers to buy them, because this is one of your revenues as well, right? You sell subscription to your products.
I think right now the only product that we sell subscriptions to like the general audience is Scribe. It's an automated transcription tool. And it's relatively recent. I think we started selling subscriptions maybe 3 years ago, maybe four actually. I think for us, and I think that applies for the whole fact checking community. We were very reliant on a few sources of revenue, and it's of course it's not a good idea for any company to be too reliant on too few sources, and we wanted to diversify our revenue sources. Basically, the way that we started Scriba was that we needed basically we had a fact checking project to fact check everything that Bolsonaro, former president of Brazil, would say. And at some point, he was talking so much, and there was so much misinformation that we had one person that would only do like transcribe what he said. Like it was almost her full time job, and then everything was done manually, and we thought that that's not sustainable. Let's just find this like a tool that does that for us. That was 2021, I think, or maybe 2020. But then there were no tools that we could use that were both good in Portuguese and had a cost reasonable enough for the volume that we needed. So we were fortunate enough to have a team of developers, and we started researching like if we could develop our own tool that would work well in Portuguese. And we did that, and then we quickly realized that there were so many companies that had the same problem in Brazil, and we thought that maybe it's an opportunity for us to diversify our revenue streams, and then we started selling subscriptions for that, and it's been one of the most successful projects. So I think in this case, I think it became, and as it often does, like we saw a problem that needed to be solved, and we were fortunate enough to have the right tools and right people in place at the right time. And then I think when you solve a problem and then it's very evident that you're solving a problem, I think it's easier to sell that to people.
So yeah, it came out of necessity in a way. So you try to solve a problem, and this is how you came up with that revenue stream. Interesting. So your team came up with conversational bots and monitoring bots to tackle misinformation, right? Tell me more about your Fatima bot. How does it work, and how does it help to fight misinformation?
So Fatima is a project that started to be developed in 2019. And the idea was that there's a lot of readers that sent us emails like asking us to fact check things. And of course, we're a small team and we didn't have the capacity to reply to everybody. But also we wanted to serve those people, and also we wanted the information because often they would send us something that we hadn't seen before. Basically, the idea was to have something completely automated that could do both collect information from the readers and also give them another way of interacting with our content without as needing to reply to every message. And then 2022, after the whole ChatGPT craze happened, we realized that it was a great use case to incorporate a generative AI. So we changed the way Fatima works to do that. So basically, the way it used to work was that someone would ask a question about, I don't know, like, does tea cure cancer or something like that. And then we would search in our database for whatever articles were more relevant to answer that question, and then we'd return a list of links. So Fatima would say, like, here's a like three links I found related to your question. So then the user had to click on the links, read the articles, and find the answer for themselves. And what generative AI allowed us to do is to provide a more conversational experience and to answer directly to the user's questions. So now, if you use Fatima and you ask a question, we will also do a search in our database, but instead of returning the links, we will summarize the content. Yeah, use a LLM to summarize the content of the relevant articles, and then return a text to the user in a way that uses our content, but to directly answer the question. And I think one interesting thing that we've been tracking a metric of, like, every time so Fatima is in WhatsApp, Telegram, and also web app. And on WhatsApp, we've been tracking the metric. Every time we send a message, we ask the user if the message was useful for them or not. And before this new LLM phase of Fatima, we had a 40% positive feedback. And since we implemented the LLM version, it went up to 75%. It was a change that our readers and users see value in.
What kind of relationship do you have with your audience? So, do you collaborate with them? Do they contribute by sending, I don't know, fact check and suggestions? What kind of communication is there, if at all?
Yeah, so we have a strong presence on social media. There's a lot of interaction that happens on social media, and Fatima is also an important channel for us to interact with their users. Basically, we want to reach the users wherever they are and however they want to interact with us. Through Fatima, they can send us. It also works like as a tip line. So if they see misinformation that they post that they think may be misinformation, they can send us through Fatima. But I think one of the interesting things with Fatima is that we can kind of see the data in aggregate and try to understand the if something it's a useful tool to confirm or to investigate whether something is viral or not. Yeah, as I said, just aggregates data from different readers.
So there are different numbers, but one of the recent number I found that 92% of young people in Brazil get their news from social media, and yet major news organizations are not reaching young audiences. How do you work with Gen Z?
It's I feel like it's a question that every news outlet struggles with and is looking for answers. Every event that I go, every conference, people are talking about how do we reach to younger audiences. I think we have similar problems as other organizations. There is like a general sense that younger people were not that interested in consuming news. I think for us, one thing that we also not like the super out of the box solution, but is investing more in video. For the past 2 years, I think that it's been one of the areas that we invested the most in, both like longer videos, but also like short form content. Probably the main strategy that we have is that to invest more and more in video. Also, the focus that we have in innovation and in like coming up with different tools for, I think it can be appealing for younger audiences. So that's something like the position ourselves as an innovative organization that is very tech driven. But at the end of the day, like, I think it's a challenge for the whole industry. It's not, no one has found a clear solution that works all the time. Because also you don't want to kind of dumb down the content or like dilute it just to appeal to other audiences. So it's finding the balance between making content that is appealing, that is engaging, while also guided by the values of good journalism.
Interesting. I mean, again, this is my perception. Maybe this is not yours, but the word innovation and innovative is becoming more and more empty. You know, people use it so many times and say, and everybody's so innovative and all that. And when you really look at what exactly people are doing, you think, like, how is it innovative? You know, it's like, not really. But you, being a director of innovation, what is the, if you are like, you know, for yourself, what would you say, like, this thing which I'm working on now, or I just finished or something, is really innovative? Even if it does exist in the industry, we have such a twist that nobody came up with this. What is that?
Yeah. No, it's funny. I completely agree that not only innovation, but also other buzzwords are being becoming empty, and also because there's so much effort on hyping things and overhyping things. For us, as I said, technology and innovation are they have to serve a purpose. They have to serve our journalism and the mission of our company. So it's not just like, for the hype or for anything. And that's something including with especially now that AI has become this huge thing that everybody wants to be in and wants to do something related to AI. I think it's so easy to fall in a trap of I'll just launch anything with an LLM or with that uses AI just because I want to surf the hype. And for us, one of the exercises that we've tried to do is to really think about the problems that we are trying to solve instead of just launching something because it's hyped or whatever. The case of Fatima was easy. I see so many people that like launching chatbots for just no reason or like no clear vision of the product. And we're fortunate we had a very good use case for LLMs for a project that was already relevant. In terms of projects we're doing now, we're doing one project that I'm very excited about. That's called, well, the name is in Portuguese, a temporary name. It's called Busca Fatos. It translates to fact finder. So basically, to give you some context, we have a lot of demand for fact checking live events. And we do that especially during elections, but it's so labor intensive. It's like you wouldn't believe the amount of people that it takes to fact check live a debate, for instance. Is basically our whole team. So we're working on it's almost like an assistant for live fact checking. It transcribes live feed from YouTube, for instance, and then we use LLMs to parse fact checkable sentences, and then we take each claim or each sentence that we want to fact check, and we do a web search giving context to the fact checker about whether or not that sentence is true. So it does almost like a live pre-fact checking. But right now it's not live yet. We're doing it just with YouTube videos. But the idea is that, yeah, exactly that. You transcribe the video, parse the fact checkable claims, and then you do part of the research for the initial research for you. And yeah, I think the idea for this is to have something in production for next year during the Brazilian presidential elections. And hopefully, what we're trying to achieve is to make it much less labor intensive for our team to fact check live, and hopefully we can do more events and fact check more content during the live events.
I wanted to ask you about one of your project and kind of to talk about distorted algorithms. So, your project called Goldflix, kind of, it's what is it, a digital catalog of the lies that led to the uprising of January 2023, when frustrated Bolsonaro supporters attacked public buildings in the capital of Brazil following his election defeat. And your team has compiled an expose of the digital agitation conducted by extremists on social media platform during the 2022 election. And the special aspect of Goldflix is that it not only documents the digital lies and hate that led to the riots, but also how the distorted algorithms of apps and platforms contributed to their spread. So can you elaborate on those distorted algorithms?
Yeah, I think so. Just give some more context about Golfflix. We have another project called Radar, which is an automated social media monitor. So the idea is to follow the trends of misinformation across different platforms. And we had this. So basically, the Golfflix is almost like a spin-off of this project. Radar is very kind of data oriented. after the coup attempt happened in Brazil, we wanted to use all the data that we had collected, but display it in a way that people could relate to. The idea was to maybe like give them a better understanding of what is it to be um, like in a the smartphone of a person who has been radicalized, or to see what kind of media kind of diet those people have and how social media has contributed to that. So yeah, I think it's not nothing new, but I think the same thing that happened in other places happened in Brazil also, in that social media was used and instrumentalized to radicalize people. The way social media works, like the louder and the more radical you sound, the more engagement you have. There were political leaders in Brazil who took advantage of that dynamic to, especially on the right, and like Bolsonaro followers and Bolsonaro himself, to just create a lot of angst and a lot of anger in Brazilian politics. And for sure, that was one of the components of the coup attempt in Brazil. One thing that I've been thinking a lot is like how just there's so many important parts of our lives that are now intermediated by those apps. And I think it creates distorted incentives, like what social media platforms want to do. And what they are set up to accomplish is to sell ads. It's not to have a healthy debate about policy. So I think we just filter all the information, like all the public debate, but not only that, like our personal relationships or dating, everything is going through a filter of a platform that was not like whose main goal is not to encourage healthy relationships or a healthy debate. It's just sell sneakers and TVs. So yeah, I think that's part of why we see those problems, leaving important parts of our lives in a platform that was set up not with the going mind of letting us have like healthy public debate. It's just to sell stuff.
The Aos Fatos co-founder, Ty Nallon, likes to repeat that the victories of Trump and Bolsonaro significantly contributed to the success and growth of Aos Fatos, as fact-checking organizations suddenly gained importance beyond journalism. You've been existing as an organization for 10 years now. How has the perception of facts changed in Brazilian society? What is true and what is false when the president of the United States can say about a well-researched New York Times article, oh, that's fake news? I know it's a huge question, and I don't expect any representative answer, just your observations.
What changed about people's perception of truth? It's funny because it's also a testament to how successful and influential fact checking has become, because politicians felt the need to use the language that fact checking created to for political purposes. So they're very contradictory things happening at the same time. We were used to an environment before everything happened, especially like before Brexit and for the first Trump election, in which there was a tendency to trust institutions almost automatically, and then that changed. So we were used to an environment in which basic facts were not at the center of the political stage. They were not being disputed. Like politics happen around the facts mostly. Of course, we also tend to idealize how the past was. So there was misinformation already for sure. But I think that social media and what happened with Brexit and with Trump kind of accelerated and fragmented more the information environment. I think there are many good and bad things that have happened since then. This process has been accelerated, and people have become more like attaching their worldview to politics in a way that we hadn't seen before. At the same time, I think there was a reaction from society and from journalism, and fact checking being one of the reactions that try to rebalance or find a balance again to stress again the importance of factuality. And as I was saying, I think one of the measures of the success that fact checking has had of the past few years that politicians are trying to use the same language. You even see politicians that have like fact checking websites in their campaigns, for instance, and they use a lot of the same language, and they will have stamps for to say that claim that something is false. And of course, it's not fact checking because fact checking is not about only about language. It's about the process and the methods we use. I think it's a measure of success how often people talk about misinformation and disinformation and about fact checking and how they use that language. And of course, it's also a challenge for us as fact checkers, as journalists. Like, how do we keep coming up with languages and showing up people that what these politicians are doing and calling fact checking is not the same thing that we do. Yeah, I think we actually posted a few weeks ago after Meta announced that they were discontinuing the fact checking program in the US. They we There was a lot of confusion about what is fact checking and what is the difference between social media moderation and fact checking. And we posted a story, an article talking about more explaining to people more what fact checking is, and it's something that we do from time to time. But I think maybe we as an industry and journalists, like journalism as an industry, does not do that enough. Talking about itself and explaining to people the process that we go through to publish an article, for instance. At the end of the day, it's an exercise of convincing people and showing them how thoroughly we research our pieces. And maybe one good thing that emerged from all this is that we as media, we took it for granted that people trusted us. And now we have to earn people's confidence. And we have to do that by being more transparent and by being about our funding sources, about how we research for articles, about why we choose one specialist over the other. I think that has had a positive effect on journalism. I think with all the challenges of funding and of like engaging with people, we do better journalism now as an industry. I mean, than we used to because the challenging times kind of pressure us to be more transparent and be more methodical with our work.
So let's talk about Meta and other kind of big tech companies because Aos Fatos, you have fact check in partnership with social media platforms like Meta, Quai, and Telegram, right? Mark Zuckerberg announced the end of fact checking on Facebook in the US. Even he describes those who have worked to clean up his platforms over the past 9 years as engaging in censorship, and he blames them for destroying more trust than they have created. What would you say to this, and how does it make you feel? Because you, as a respected, fact-checking website, you're still in partnership with Matter, and then Matter almost equals you to disinformers, and say like, we don't need those censors. How does it make you
Yeah.
feel?
Yeah, no, just a small correction. Right now, the only platform that we have a fact-checking partnership with is Meta. We used to work with Quai and Telegram, but we don't do anymore. Yeah, of course, it caught everyone by surprise when Meta announced that they were ending the fact-checking program in the US. Not only because it's a program that has been going on for a few years, and we are in, as you said, we're still in partnership with them as most of the program members. Not only because of the announcement, but how it was announced. We've been talking like to people from Meta for a long time about the program, and the internal assessments that they had before the announcement was all very positive about the impact of the program on the platform. So I think it's very clear what it is. Like, Zuckerberg wanted to align himself very strongly with the Trump administration. Of course, it's very disturbing, especially the way he announced the program. And as you said, like creating a lot of misinformation about the work we do and equating fact checkers with people who produce disinformation. Of course, it's very upsetting. We don't take it as I don't think I think it says much more about Zuckerberg and his opportunities than it says about fact checkers and the work we do. I think it's very clear that it has absolutely nothing to do with the quality of the work that fact checkers do with Meta. And I know that there are a lot of people at Meta who are especially people working closely to build those programs because it's a lot of effort from them to like of course we do a lot of the work, but it's people have at Meta that have been putting a lot of effort in this program for a long time, and I know they were caught by surprise and they were also very upset about how Zuckerberg phrased and how he announced that the program would be ending in the US. It's concerning for many reasons. It's not only regarding fact checking, there's also the moderation changes that he announced are very concerning. The space that the hate speech will have in the platform or the tolerance for hate speech in the platform. From the fact checking perspective, I think we will see degradation of the quality of the information in the platform for sure. And of course, it will be a financial blow for a lot of fact checking organizations, especially in the global south.
What about reputational damage? So, how can you be now associated with an organization that actually aligns itself with Trump's administration, becoming clearly partisan, and you will still receive some financial support? Well, so they pay you money for fact checking, right, for your services. How does it affect trust of your audiences to you? Because they say, guys, come on, you're getting money from Meta. Meta is this. Meta is pro-Trump. It's, in a way, many journalists in different countries tell me that their feeling is that big tech is turning from a solution to a problem, especially for the media industry. And in this reality, don't you think that financial support or actually any connection to this kind of organizations will become a reputational liability?
Yeah, it's a tough. Like, there's no denying that the announcement put us in a very uncomfortable position because basically what Zuckerberg said was what people on the extreme right had been saying for years about the program and Meta had consistently rejected the claims that the program was partisan or that it was fueling disinformation, which is an insane thing to say. So yeah, it put us in a very uncomfortable position. At the end of the day, we still think that the work we do makes the platform better and makes the informational environment better. So that's why we are still on it. And of course, it's financially, it's important for every organization who's part of the program, even though for us, it's not existential like it is for other organizations, but it's for sure a very uncomfortable position to be in. I would say that it's always been the case and it's a more extreme version of this problem now, but I think we've always had to navigate that discomfort just because we have been collaborating with social media platforms, not only Meta but also Google, YouTube, Quai, Telegram. We have disagreed with many of their decisions, and the only so for us the way we navigate this apparent contradiction or maybe this contradiction is that we again rely on journalism, so it doesn't change. We do a lot of reporting on the moderation decisions of those companies, and having a partnership with them or not does not change how we approach that in our reporting.
Yeah, I'm just trying to say, because especially you, because you're very kind of tech driven fact check and website. So, and it's almost like, I know it's it's difficult situation because it's impossible to say, you know what, we can live without big tech. We can't because we're all dependent on them now. But do you discuss it in your newsroom? How can this relationship between media and big tech can be renegotiated, reimagined? Because they are not now working, at least not in the favor of the media industry at all.
I think it's always been a very difficult relationship between the media and big tech, for business reasons, but also for because of the yeah, how fragmented the media environment has become and how much media organizations have lost control and trust, how much social media has contributed to the loss of trust in media, in like professional journalism. The audience used to belong, quote unquote, to the news organization, and now it doesn't anymore. We have to play by their rules if we want to reach people. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a difficult relationship. It will continue to be a difficult relationship full of contradictions, and we have to work with them because everybody, like literally the whole world uses those platforms, And they, as you alluded to, people, that's where people get the news. And I think with if we want to reach people, we have to talk to these companies, and at the same time we have to put pressure on them to make better decisions, and we have to report on the bad decisions they make. And there's no easy answer, and there's no path without contradictions and without hard decisions.
What is the biggest challenge you face as a newsroom and you personally as a director of innovation?
As a newsroom, I think, yeah, some of the topics that we touched on, reaching to new audiences, especially younger people, is definitely a challenge. We've talked so much about like news fatigue that it became a cliche, but it's also a real thing. Like people are just so fed up of being bombarded with news all the time. Not only with news, like with information all the time. And how do you stand out? And how do you show them that the information that we are providing is of higher quality and it's more useful than random Facebook posts or Instagram posts that they see online. And as a director of innovation, I think it's a very exciting time to be in the position that I am. There's so much changing with technology and so many possibilities. I think one challenge, trying not to believe in the hype too much. Like it is very exciting, but also like keep the mission that we have in mind all the times that we're developing technology to increase the impact of journalists, to increase productivity for journalists. We don't want to replace journalists. We want to, you know, use technology to empower them to do more relevant work. One of the difficulties we have is like attracting and keeping talent, especially on the tech side, because we're competing with, like, if you're hiring developers, you're competing with large technology companies. Especially now with AI, I feel like everybody is hiring developers now. So I think, yeah, definitely attracting talent and keeping them is a challenge. We have been more fortunate than other companies, maybe. We have our team together for a while now, and they're amazing. But I think it's definitely a challenge for the industry.
What do you think is the biggest misconception of Gen AI in the context of journalism, storytelling, fact checking? What are we kind of missing?
You mean from the perspective of news organizations or from the perspective of the audience?
From your perspective, like what is the biggest misconception that we perceive that we need to use AI tools for that, but maybe we're missing something there in the way we are perceiving these tools and the power of these tools? You know what strikes me while you're
Yeah.
thinking, I'm telling you that because I consult a lot of newsrooms in different parts of the world, and I see that a lot of newsrooms use AI tools to basically optimize existing content, you know, and to optimize their time, to make it more efficient. They don't do anything new with it, you know, they just use it almost like a very boring tool. And I don't see maybe very, very few organizations which look at this tool as a new storytelling medium. The whole rules, the game just changing. It's like almost, you know, like during TV times when YouTube emerged. What was in the beginning, people would just cut the video from the TV package and upload it on YouTube. It doesn't work. And it seems to me that we're doing the same now with AI, although it's a completely
Yeah.
hyper personalized, different storytelling medium. So, what is your feeling? What is the biggest misconception?
That's interesting, but I will say that I think it happens to every medium, like every new medium, every innovation. Like it's like the old story of when video cameras were invented, people started filming theater plays, like instead of doing cinema. But it takes a while for you to kind of have a command of the technology and of the language. So I agree with you. I think it's both. I think we have to have more imagination on how we use the tools. And I think we also have to have real or more realist expectations of what the tools can do. It's not like it's not going to change journalism suddenly, and you will not completely change everything from one day to the other. Sometimes that's the expectation that people had when, again, because of all the hype that Gen AI received. And I think now, as you said, we are in a bit of a plateau of like, okay, everybody is doing transcription, everybody is doing summaries, everybody is doing like automatic tagging and SEO. What else? That's fine. That's a great use of the technology. it seems like it should be more powerful than that and should be more transformative. I think basically what happened is that all the easy things that we could do, most organizations have done, and now we have to be more creative and more imaginative in how we apply the technology. Maybe one interesting area that people don't talk a lot about how important it is for us to invest is like UI. So like creating new user interfaces to use those models as the LLMs become a commodity. I think we're reaching a point that everybody will be able to have access to and more or less the same level of large language models. So what else can we do to change the way that these technologies apply? And I think coming up with smart user interfaces will be one of them. But I agree. I'm very excited about, and I think maybe that's one thing that isn't being explored that much is like how AI can contribute to news gathering and to reporting. One project that we did recently kind of applied that. It's called Checkup. Basically, we did an investigation about how misinformation is being spread through ads, like native advertising, like Taboola, and those sorts of medium that have like those low quality ads that try to confuse the user, the readers, to make they think it's news. So we scraped 200,000 ads, and then we use LLMs to classify them into topics, and then we analyze health related ads. Yeah, so basically like an extra pair of hands for us. Like I think that's a very useful way of thinking about AI. What would you do if you had like many more employees than what you have? And I think maybe that's like the use of AI for reporting. I think we can do more of that.
Is there anything your competitors do in terms of using Gen AI to either be more creative storytellers or maybe even redesign their business model? Anything they do you feel you can learn from, or even maybe think, damn, why didn't we come up with this first?
Oh, especially in the fact checking space, there are so many people doing amazing work with AI. And I should say also that for a lot of organizations, ours included, the journey with AI hasn't started with OpenAI. People have been working with AI for many, many years, like different types of tools. But yeah, no, there are many organizations that are doing amazing work. Full Fact in the UK. I was just talking to the people from Factiverse from Norway the other day, also doing amazing work. I think the fact checking community is very driven by innovation, and there are many, many examples of people doing interesting work.
But in your newsroom, so again, like, do they expect from you as a director of innovations that, okay, you give us a kind of a roadmap for the next year or at least next 6 months because things change so fast? Where do we look at? You know, where do we go basically? How can we be there before anyone else is there? So also to make it your advantage and maybe also financial advantage. What direction are you looking at now?
I cannot share that with you. No, I'm just kidding.
I see, I see. It's a financial huge secret, right?
Yeah, no, I'm kidding. I think yeah, there's so many. I think, as I said, we're looking into incorporating the use of AI more in our reporting. So, like, make use of the technology to do more work that is impactful. We are developing the tool. Of course, productivity is still a big area that we can use AI. So the fact-checking assistant that I mentioned has been demanding a lot of effort from us. We were working on maintaining the projects we have already, so like the Scriba and Fatima, and how to improve Fatima as well, like how to, as you said, like AI is not only a productivity tool, but also it can be a new way of engaging with the audience. So like how we can find new ways through the projects that we have already, but also new projects potentially to engage our audience in. One thing that we are working on right now is to how to incorporate Fatima more on our website. So we are planning to, that's something we should release relatively soon, like in the first semester, but like have a more integrated experience in our website so that readers can use Fatima as an assistant to navigate our website. So like if they want more information about a topic that they're reading, she'll be always there, and they can ask questions about the content, and like it can take them to different to other articles that we wrote about the topic, and let them interact with her content in our conversational way. It's very open now what can be achieved with AI, and I think all the low-hanging fruits, or most of them, have been caught, and we have to be creative, and like it's not an easy process. It's like every day coming up with ideas and testing them and see what works and what doesn't.
Especially for the directors of innovations, because I'm sure people expect from you to come up with new ideas. Bruno, I have like blitz questions, couple of questions, very short questions, very short answers. Don't think too much, just fire. So what's your personal life hack for journalists and storytellers regarding using AI? An advice you could give to yourself or to your closest colleague?
Yeah, I think one thing that it's kind of not as popular is like there, of course, we know about the big models and like LLMs, etc. But there are so many smaller models that do really interesting things. I think Hugging Face is an amazing repository for a lot of interesting projects, and there's a lot you can do, like a lot of useful tools for journalists there, and they are becoming more and more accessible. And even if you don't know how to code, there are a lot of other things that we can do that are not just interacting with LLMs. So just like look for the smaller, more interesting, more cutting edge models that are being released every day.
What are your three dominant emotions about the rapid development of AI?
Probably it's overwhelming and like impossible to feels impossible to keep up with everything. It's very exciting. We will, now that like the most obvious applications of AI are kind of out of the way, I think even though it feels like we're at a plateau now, I think the most interesting use cases and tools are yet to come. And I think we'll be seeing a lot of interesting use cases in the next couple of years. And there are so many talented and interesting people working on that. A third one, like a bit of fear that news organizations are just falling again in the trap of building their audiences in someone else's house. So like especially with all the agreements that have been announced, now the Guardian has announced an agreement with OpenAI. I think I fear that we should be acting more collectively, and we're not as an industry.
The future of journalism, how would you describe it in three words?
Challenging, I think impactful, and open, in the sense that we don't know what's going to happen. Like it seems like everything is, I don't know exactly. Maybe I know is a better word.
Bruno, thank you so much and good luck with all your really innovative projects, not just the empty word. I'm sure that you're doing something groundbreaking, yet another empty word.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of AI Fluent with me, Ilona Vinogradova, and feel a bit less alone in your newsroom's everyday struggles. This podcast was produced by Love and Films Pro Media Lab. If you would like to hear more, please subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Share it with your friends and colleagues if you think they might find it useful or inspirational. And if you really like this podcast, review it on your listening app of choice. It will help us to reach more storytellers and make them feel part of a bigger community. I hope you'll join me next time. Until then, take good care of yourself and each other.